In this video tutorial, we're going to talk about how to import load combinations from one adapt builder file to another adapt builder file using the .imp format. And this is mainly used to save time so that the user doesn't have to re-enter load combinations when we have several that need to be processed for a model. We'll go ahead and get started now. We're going to show a couple of variations on different types of results that you can get when importing and how to go about getting the right imported combinations or adjusting the model that you're importing into. So we'll go ahead and open Builder here, and we're going to open a multi-story model. Okay, in this model we have, I'll go into global mode, we have several load types. We have wind loads, earthquake loads, those are all defined. If we go into the load case library, you can see we have some building loads and also some gravity loads applied. Currently, the gravity loads are set to the default or reserved load cases, dead load and live load. And this is important to make a distinction between how these are named and how the imported load cases will be named. So we'll take this model, and I'm actually going to just save this as a different name. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to import. You'll notice, by the way, that in this model under load combos, here we have just the default combinations that are assigned to the selected design code under criteria. And these are gravity only combinations. Currently the program doesn't build out lateral combinations for wind and seismic. So the user is left to do this at least once, and then we can use this process to import the data. Okay, we'll go over here to File, Import, INP, and we're going to select an INP file. This INP file is called Master Loading ACI INP. This was created from another builder model. So this particular builder model that this was created from did not have any gravity loads applied to it. It only had load combinations created and lateral loads. That's an important point to make. We'll talk about that a little more here in a moment. So we'll go ahead and just open this file. I want to just update our model, so I'm going to select Update the level. I'll deselect all of my components here. Under Load Cases, you'll notice self-weight. We don't want to import the self-weight reactions from this other model. There are none to speak of because we didn't solve the model that this was created from. So we're going to leave this to none. This again is important to understand what's going on here. Notice in the other model there were no other load combinations gravity-wise, or load cases rather, other than self-weight, which is just a reserved defaulted to load case. So combinations, if we look at the combos, we have a long list of combinations here that will be imported. So this is what we want. But you'll notice in this case, notice the name of the dead load and live load. This is dead underscore load and live underscore load. Okay, this is defaulted to because we are not mapping any dead load or live load cases here. And that, again, that is an important distinction. So we'll go ahead and just run through this. We'll select OK. We want to import all. I'm going to go back to my default multi-level model here. I'll turn off the loading. And if we go to load combos, seemingly everything looks fine. We have 241 combinations imported. And you'll notice if we expand this window, I'm going to show just the load cases, that the combinations for gravity and wind, first thing, these are the 4 combinations that were defaulted to. Once the program imports, you'll notice it actually repeats these, but it adds some underscore characters because of the repeat. So we can technically just get rid of this repeated set of combos. They're repeated again because of the naming of the combinations and the load cases, the lack of load cases that we've mapped into this file. So we're only importing combination. Now what's important to note, if we if we kind of scroll down past all of the wind combinations, these are just wind only. These are no code check. These are basically the wind combos that are created from ASC 7. That's what these represent. We'll come past these. We get down into the strength, ULS, and service combinations, SLS. And you'll notice that for strength, ULS, the dead and live load factors associated with these combos are blank. Okay, so here the user would need to actually go in and write in these combination factors because we never imported dead or live into the model. Now, you'll notice at the beginning I actually went to cases. If I actually expand this to combos, here's what the user must watch out for. Because the program did not see us mapping dead load and live load into this file, it's actually created dead underscore load and live underscore load. This is what we showed earlier. All of the factors are actually assigned to these two names, dead load and live load underscore. They are not assigned to our inherent dead and live loads that were created in the model that we've imported to. So here the user has two options. You can write in the factors under dead load and live load, these two that are actually defined load cases. By defined, what I mean is if I go to the load settings, you'll notice if I go to patch load, I've actually defined loads as dead and live. Those were already assigned in this model. Okay, so again, because the program imported load factors to dead underscore and load underscore load, or live underscore load, we have to reassign the factors. Or we keep the factors in place where they're actually assigned to dead underscore live underscore. And you can see those are assigned here in these two columns. And we basically reassign the loads in this model to a different load case name. That's probably the easier method. Here I could just go into load cases and I would just add two load cases and I would need to match the names. This would be dead underscore load and this would be live underscore load. And I can then select the loads. I've turned on my dead and live loads. I'll just do a home select by type. I'll select my, actually let me isolate them first. We'll go back to load, view load set. Okay, and we're going to go to, let's do dead load first. I'll just select the patch loads. You would have to do it for patch, line, or point, whatever is assigned to the dead load case. I'm going to select those loads. I'll go to modify the selection, and now I can just set these to dead underscore load. And I'm basically just switching out the load case name because all of the imported combinations include this, are assigned to this name. So that's probably an easier way to handle the fact that we imported load case names and had to change it slightly because there was no mapping of load cases when we set the import option values at the onset of this particular example. Again, the other way, just to reiterate, is under loading combinations, we could go in here and just adjust the factors. I would have to delete the factors associated with dead underscore load, live underscore load, and I would have to replace them here. So that's the other method that just takes a little more time to handle this. Now, if we want this to be imported with mapping of proper load cases rather than duplicating the load case name, then we have to actually have what we'll consider a dummy load for dead and live in the actual file, the INP file that we import, so that we can map those load cases into this model. So we're going to start over here. We're going to actually build just a few combinations because the master ACI file that I was using, it just doesn't have the data inside of it for reactions. I can't really use that to show this. So we're going to go back. I'm going to go back and open up my base model. Okay. And in this base model, I'm actually just going to basically create a couple of dummy loads. That's all we need. We're going to ignore the lateral loads. Those are already in place. We already know that the file that we're using to generate the IMP includes lateral, and the file that we're going to build that we want to import the combinations to also includes the same lateral load case names. So that's already set up properly. Here we're more concerned about the gravity loads and being able to map those. So I'll go ahead and just turn off the loads. I'm going to turn on my my patch loads or my gravity loads. And then I'll go ahead and select these. I'll just select patch load and delete them. This is essentially just a dummy model. And I'll just go down to the bottom level, and we're going to create one point load. So we're going to go to loading, point load. I'm just going to add a couple of point loads. This will be called the dead load. The value will be 0.001. And this is called a live load. You would do this for each gravity load case name, or each general load case name rather, that you want to import in. Again, this is 0.001, and that defines two dummy loads that are then mappable and trigger the mapping of dead to dead, live to live between models. Okay, so that's all we have to do there. We have our lateral loads in place already. You can see we have lateral. Technically we have a dead load and a live load. Now what I'll do is just create a few more combos. Just for an example, we'll create 8 combinations here. We'll call these service, and then I'll create strength combos. Okay, this one I'm going to actually delete. We have strength, and then we have service. Let me expand the window here. Okay, and I'll just use factors of 1 just for these combinations, just for the sake of time in the example. So we're going to say that these strength combinations, we're going to have 1 times all of our gravity load for all combos. That includes dead load and live load, and then I'll kind of alternate what I'm including in terms of the lateral. Okay, so we can see I have 1 times self-weight dead and live for all of the strength and service. And this really just represents the need or the necessity for the user to actually enter a list of combinations that can then be reapplied to other models. So that's basically what we're doing. In this case, for this example, these are obviously fictitious combinations. Here we'll just say this is 1, and then we'll say this is -1. We might have 1, -1 here. -1 here, and then this we'll say is 1, -1, and then over here for service I'll just use the EQ, and then we'll just assign, let's see, something like this. So we have some fake combinations here, just strength, service. We want to import these into another model. We'll close this dialog and we'll use File, Export, and we're going to export this as an IMP file. So we'll call this load combos XYZ, and now we're going to import that file into another model to bring in those combinations. So let's go ahead and open that other model. We'll go to Open. This model, if we go to multi-story mode and then turn on all of our loads, we already have defined gravity loads here. These are tagged as dead and live. So we want to make sure the load combinations that we import also use these names. And that's why we created the dummy loads of basically 0 dead and 0 live point loads in the previous model, so that we can map those into this model. We're going to go to File, Import, IMP, and we'll navigate to that IMP file. And before we actually do this, it's important to note you want to make sure you have the proper design code set here. Otherwise, if you change it after you've imported the combos, this will reset the load combinations. So we've set this to the design code that we want. We'll go back to File, Import, INP, and here we're going to go ahead and update. I'm going to change this to current plane because that plane has stored reactions basically that write the data to the load case table. I'll deselect the components. We don't want to import any geometric components here. Under load cases, now I can map. I can say this load case that's predefined with the underscore, it's actually a dead load. This is a live load. I'm going to import the applied forces. Okay, those are basically zero. Those are just the dummy loads I created in my source model. And I want to map these to dead and live. Wind loads are identical. They're already called wind underscore P and P90 inside of our existing model, so we don't need to do anything with those. I'll go to load combos and I'm going to import all. After I do this under loading combos, we can see this includes the strength, 8 strength combos, 8 service combos, and these are already mapped properly to dead load and live load. So that's how we can avoid either rewriting the load factors in for several combinations or switching out and creating a new load case name and then switching and applying the loads to that new name that I showed in the first example. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at support@adaptsoft.com. Thank you.